Employers, what jobs are you finding hard to fill? When I worked in management in retail, specifically GameStop, it was very easy to find applicants but very difficult to find reliable employees. During my time at GameStop, we used to hire at age 17 but bumped it up to 18. I'm pretty sure there were plenty of legal reasons, but finding a kid who showed up for their shifts was damn near impossible. I remember getting praise for my work ethic when I myself started working at GameStop at 17. I was like, really? All I do is show up and do whatever I'm told to. My manager said, exactly. I'm 22 now, but I've been told by the 3 employers that I've had that this is an issue they have very frequently with my age group. So here's a tip. If you're a sub-25-year-old going to work somewhere for the first time, the bar is ridiculously low. Just showing up consistently and on time will be impressive. I know, right? Showing up on time is the easiest thing you can do at work. It makes you look good and requires no special skills. Story 2. Chemical engineers who can travel and aren't weird. We need people with some experience. My boss wants 5 to 10 years, but I can probably work with 3 to 5 years if your experience is in an industrial setting. The company is US-based, however, we need people in Delhi too. Travel will be for 3 to 6 months, maybe a little longer, to places like India, South Africa, China, Japan, and Korea, as well as the EU, UK, and USA as things evolve. Most locations will be relatively crappy, but if you are still serious, let me know and we will figure out the next steps. The industry is biotech, but I would describe it as similar to gas treating or wastewater, though there is a specialty chemical element to it. Story 3. Pilots and aircraft mechanics. All our bases are running between 50 and 75% pilot staff levels. This means the ones we do have work more hours. The 1,500 to 1,000 hour rules really shook up the industry. And now the regional airlines are vacuuming up people who don't even have a commercial license yet and giving them signing bonuses so they will come to work for them once they reach minimums. Aircraft mechanics are also in demand, but it isn't so bad yet. It's just really hard to find good ones with type experience. You can train one who just got their A&P, but it might be a year before they are really useful to the company. Story 4. Not an employer, but an employee that's been with the company for years, finding people who want to stay as servers and chefs in a long-term care facility. The head chef is constantly interviewing people. He's hired tons of people, and they all quit a few weeks to months later. A lot of the residents have dementia or other cognitive impairments, so they forget they already ordered and they forget what they ordered. There are a group of ladies who will each, without fail, send back their meals 5+ times. This is during every meal. They call the servers names and try to get other patients riled up, etc. There is no way to get them to stop doing this. They don't know that they're doing it. So every person who works in the kitchen has to have extremely thick skin. Story 5. I'm not an employer, but I can speak to the issues facing veterinary nursing and large animal veterinarians. For large animal vets, you have new grads with $200,000 to $300,000 in student loan debt after 8 years of higher education who are, unsurprisingly, unwilling to relocate to low-income areas in the Midwest to work for $50,000 a year. It reached a point where the AVMA looked into expanding the role of veterinary nurses with large animal specialization just to get these areas served. Which brings us to the veterinary nurse issue in the US. The typical vet tech requires 2 to 4 years of higher education in order to perform the tasks asked of them, which include everything from radiography to anesthesia. Unfortunately, due to state licensing procedures, there are still states where a vet or clinic owner can hire a teenager whose previous work experience was at Forever 21 and, quote, on-the-job training them to perform anesthesia for minimum wage. This leads to the position being undervalued and underpaid, even gaining a specialty, which requires years of work, a massive log of case studies, and a board exam won't guarantee you a raise. The typical vet tech usually moves on from the position in 5 to 7 years, and the majority of them go into human nursing or other medical fields because they pay so much more. Consequently, we end up losing the veterinary nurses who are phenomenal at their careers. As vet medicine advances to the levels of care that owners expect, you need people who know how to do the more advanced things that are difficult to pick up with OTJ training. My schooling prepared me to hit the ground running, and I was able to hit a lot of benchmarks at my first ECC, emergency and critical care job. But if vets would rather hire some random person who just likes animals, then it doesn't matter how good I am. This leads me back to the AVMA, which, despite participating in a study that was basically where do all the vet techs go, still continues to crap on the veterinary nursing profession. They only just begrudgingly joined the veterinary nursing initiative through NAVTA, yet they still want veterinary nurses to invest the schooling, time, and effort to become specialists just to fill the large animal gap. Story 6. My insurance provider makes me substance test anyone I hire because they are operating heavy equipment, and I have a hard time even when telling people in the interview that I will be substance testing you in exactly 1 month of people passing the screening. The job is repairing heavy equipment and farm equipment. I also have some operators out there for some contracting. It's a decent job for someone who doesn't have a degree or anything. All you need is tools and to quit smoking grass for a month. My pay scale, more or less. Can you speak, read, and write properly? Are you able to physically work? Not 100 pounds and 6 foot or 400 pounds and 5 feet. Do you have any experience in this industry? Do you have any tools to repair equipment? No tools, no experience, decent guy equals $14 to $17 starting out. No tools, some experience equals $17 to $20. Some tools, some experience, $20 to $25. Good tooling, some experience, $25 to $30. Everything I can ask for and a CDL, $35+ an hour. I offer health, vision, dental, and 401k with 6% match. Story 7. Our local amusement park had a labor crisis this year with no easy way to fix it. They lost 45% of their workforce in August and could barely keep the place open. Half the rides were down because there wasn't enough staff to run them. This is a seasonal job, so of course it doesn't pay much. It's hot, you're working with the public, and it rained a lot this year, so it gets old fast. The only people they could find were high school and college students, not a problem in 1985. When the park was open Memorial Day to Labor Day, closed Mondays, and students had a solid 3-month summer vacation. But now school starts earlier, the park is pressured to extend its season, and running a ride in the heat is less attractive than working fast food. Story 8. It's always the jobs that require some technical background, but not a lot. Most people that graduate with a STEM degree are looking for careers with advancement. Hard to find someone that has some skills but not a ton, and also aren't entry-level or fresh graduates. Lab techs are always in short supply. We need someone with some tech background, ability to run testing equipment safely, and do some light Excel work, be on time, and keep a regular schedule. The problem is most people who are good workers and technically minded get something higher than an AA and want more than $15 to $20 an hour. Also, executive assistants and admins, HR always hires young, attractive females that just graduated from college, usually have some kind of communications or other liberal arts degree that don't really translate into careers. They last like 6 months, huge turnover. The job is pretty boring, welcoming guests, setting up appointments, booking travel for executives, ordering lunch, making dinner reservations, etc. Story 9. Metallurgists. My work has trouble on 3 fronts: rural location, lack of talent pool, and retention. So the rural location is a hard fix, not much we can do after the fact. Not many people want to live in the middle of nowhere. By that, I mean it's over an hour-long drive to find a movie theater. If you don't mind driving an hour to work, there are some nice places, though. For the lack of talent pool, it's harder. Not many schools have a metallurgy degree anymore. In fact, in the USA, only about 5 schools or so have accredited metallurgical engineering programs. Every other school just has a material science degree. If you are lucky, they may have a metal focus. A lot of schools are just focusing on polymers and composites. The retention is an area we have a bit more control over. By retention, I don't mean people leaving the company. They stay in the company but stop being a metallurgist. Metallurgists make good money starting for the area. I made about 3 times the median income of a single earner for my area. But for the company, it's not near the top. There is no promotion structure where a metallurgist gets promoted and stays a metallurgist. The next step is being promoted to a lead operator and 50% more in pay. From there, it's supervisors who have even higher wage ceilings. So we have a real lack of technical talent. A good candidate is found and hits their technical stride 3 years and becomes very effective. Then they bid out to a higher paying job somewhere else in the company, and we suffer for it. It's a vicious cycle. We have a few technical experts who have been around 25+ years who mentor these new candidates. Once they are gone, I don't know what we're going to do. The only reason they become experts is because they stayed in their position as metallurgists. The reason they did was mostly their own personality quirk of not wanting to be a supervisor. It's not uncommon for someone who started as a metallurgist to make their way to manager. I think one of our CEOs at one time started as a metallurgist. So highly motivated, competent people don't stay a metallurgist for long to really build their technical chops. Story 10. Not an employee, but I did some job hunting. One of the issues I see is how unrealistic some employers are. A real job application to wash dishes in a restaurant, it requires a collegial degree, yet pay $13 an hour, so 3 days a week. Minimum salary is just over $10 an hour. Require a background check and regular substance testing. Another one I saw recently, they are looking for 2 job positions, Monday to Wednesday and Thursday to Friday, 8 hours a day. Why not one for 40 hours a week? Almost all the job offers are part-time. I quote because they call it full-time at 24 hours a week, and part-time I think is 16 hours a week or less. And you have some trouble finding an actual 40-hour-a-week job. So you have to take 2 jobs to do your 40 hours a week, and when you get a promotion, you may have to refuse it because you have a schedule conflict and can't afford to lose a day of pay. So you can't switch from a 3+2 job to a 4+1, as a losing one won't accept that. The result is that you get 4 days instead of your 5, so yeah. Story 11. Developer role. The post before this, I hired a local and got 900 applicants, so this time I decided to mix it up, hiring overseas for this position. Every single candidate lied about the apps they created. Each one claimed that they made apps devved by other people. I asked one guy why he lied, and he said that he made an app just like it. Another girl gave me a bad vibe. I just didn't trust her. I figured it out during her demo. She disassembled someone else's app and demoed its working. She even had it redirect its info to a CMS to show its transaction processing. I downloaded the same app, traced its transactions to a different server. She said it was the live server. I then disassembled it and caught her out. When asked about the code, she had no clue. The real app developer confirmed she never worked for them in any capacity. Story 12. Lifeguards. Every major water park in my area has been in a bit of a slump this year when it comes to hiring good lifeguards. It's super easy to get the job and requires almost no previous experience, but due to constant corporate reorganization and a lack of management resources, the water parks here just end up shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to hiring. The water park that I work at is a revolving door for lifeguards. We have a very hard time hiring lifeguards in general, as most people cannot pass a swim test. And then around the fall-winter season, we fire all of the lifeguards that had broken rules throughout the summer or were just not liked by management. They wonder why we are so short-staffed all the time, but they make no effort in employee appreciation and retention. They fire anyone they don't like, and they pay less than a livable wage. Not to mention that there was a company-wide price increase on work cafeteria food while decreasing the amount served. We don't have paid walk time. It takes about 30 minutes to get from the employee parking garage to the clock, and I've had dozens of documented OSHA violations. Workman's comp doesn't even cover mental injuries from doing first responder work. We had a lifeguard almost pass away during a rescue, and they were given 2 weeks unpaid time off. Oh, and a majority of our full-time lifeguards are in their 30s and up. This job pays better than local firefighting and EMS jobs for some odd reason. Story 13. My family owns a candy company, and we don't have enough line workers to fill the lines. We offer decent pay and full benefits unlike a lot of the other manufacturing facilities around us. The problem is the town we're in is filled with substance users who don't want to work or can't work. We can't have someone high off their butts working on the lines because there are a ton of moving parts, sharp points, and forklifts everywhere. A lot of our workers who do show up are hardworking, awesome people. There just aren't enough of them, and it sucks. We've been around for almost 70 years and in our current plant for 35, and it isn't the fact that we're growing sales that's going to cause us to have to move. It's a lack of people who actually want to work and stay clean off of substances. We offer jobs to high school kids after school to give them something to do other than sports or clubs if that's not their thing. Rather than being on the street and exposed to these bad habits, we offer full benefits if you're full-time, which most of our workers are now. We used to have to lay off workers during the slow season because there wasn't anything to do. Now we can't fill a ton of positions all year round. My dad always says if 100 people walked in asking for jobs, he could put them all to work. The problem is we're having to fire people for showing up to work screwed up instead of having clean, sober people walk in. Story 14. I must say that I find this post quite interesting, also quite discouraging. I have posted in the past about difficulty in finding work, and this post makes things even worse. I have a wide range of experience and abilities that I can bring to any position. Need someone that can write? I can do it. I've written and edited government proposals. Need someone that can talk to the public? I can do that too. I've delivered status briefings to NASA and Boeing management. Spent 14 years working with the public for the Smithsonian Institution. Need someone that can run equipment? I can do that too. I've driven forklifts, driven RVs across the country, operated my own CNC, used to have an AutoCAD certification from a local college, and sold products I made in my shop. Need a manager? Done that too. I managed a multi-million-dollar auto museum, and in the space of a year, I doubled sales in our store and increased visitation. Need a trainer? I've done that too. In person, online, and over the phone. Need a jack of all trades to keep your business running? Yep, been there, done that. Had a client tell me that I am the employee that every business needs, but no one knows. Need a young person out of college that you can pay minimum wage to? Sorry, not me. Real experience doesn't come cheap. On the other hand, businesses thrive when they hire real experience. Once I turned 50, no one was interested at all. I once applied to FedEx and was told I didn't get the job because they were looking for, and I quote, strong backs and weak minds. I have no sympathy for businesses that complain about not being able to find staff when I have been looking for 3 years for employment and can't get an interview. Story 15. The company that I work for has been having a hard time finding a delivery driver. This position has been vacant for a few months and it doesn't look like it'll be filled consistently. So here's some of the duties that the delivery driver has to do. Picking and pulling toner from stock along and restocking when new shipments come in. Boxing and shipping toner orders for UPS and FedEx and USPS delivery. having a valid driver's license and clean driving record to deliver toner using your own vehicle up to sites to 50 miles away. This job initially would be great for a student or entry-level position for this company, but the delivery requirement is a major downside. To top it off, it's part-time hours, about 30 hours, and the pay is minimum wage, $11 Canadian, with gas being reimbursement. The employee that takes this position is pretty much stuck at part-time, and not to mention the mileage along with the wear and tear on an employee's car. And they wonder why they can't fill this position or keep it filled, as people quit often because the hours and the pay and the driving isn't worth it. Story 16. Just saying this for any young people reading. I'm in the electrical construction field, but this could honestly be said for all of these skilled trades. This is seriously prime time to pick up a trade, but the window is closing. The nationwide, you have to go to college to get a good job mentality that has been present the last 10 plus years has pretty much made it so we're always hiring. Specifically, we need young apprentices willing to work hard and learn. It's not the easy way out, it's an honest day of work and something you can be proud of. And before you roll your eyes, you little crap, one big selling point that may surprise you is if you are willing to work in a major city, you will make a lot of money. Electricians in my city make $50 per hour, great healthcare, plus many other benefits. Story 17. Not an employer, but apparently there's a major shortage of people, both laborers and engineers, for launch vehicle ground support equipment. Turns out building mobile skyscraper-sized structures that can support thousands of tons, handle cryogenic fluids, tolerate rocket exhaust hundreds of times with minimal maintenance, and flawlessly release those rockets is a pretty niche set of skills, and the quality required for the construction itself is nuts too, especially in anything that has to interact with the propellant itself. Contamination would be very bad, especially in locks. Plus, it's got to survive such huge temperature and pressure variations without leaking. I do not know a huge amount about welding, but I showed a relative who does some pictures a welder took while working at LC39A, and he called the welds there a goddamn work of art. And right now there's a bit of an explosion of demand for this sort of thing, with about a dozen different pads in the US currently going through major upgrades or brand new construction, plus ongoing maintenance of all the existing ones, plus a crap ton more likely to be built from scratch in the next decade or so. NASA, in particular, has suffered since they're more limited in what they can pay, and they and their contractors have lost a lot of people to commercial projects as a result. Story 18. Not an employer, but getting into private security took me out of 20 years of being a cubicle drone and put me in something I actually enjoy doing. The pay is contract-based, so whatever home base and the client decide is what you get, but some posts pay really well. Depending on the site you're assigned to, you could have a relatively easy 40-hour-a-week on CCTV monitoring and a little bit of patrol for like $12 to $13 an hour, or do a bunch of graveyard shifts and have to do massive tours for that or more. It's really a crapshoot depending on who's looking for what, but we have a dearth of people looking to become licensed officers. They appreciate flexibility and a firm but politely professional demeanor. Enjoying long walks will probably help. Depending on the site, being a people person isn't necessarily a requirement, but it helps. And I'll be frank, times are scary these days. I don't like the fact that someone could walk into one of my sites with a gun one of these days and decide to do whatever he wants, but at least that's motivation for me to do a good job. And man, I do what I do now every day for the rest of my life, even if it means I have to get in the way of a bullet as part of my job description, just so I don't have to answer a single damn phone call that isn't meant for me ever again. And if you're enjoying the video and learning a thing or two, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 19. Young apprentice plumbers who will actually show up to work on time every day, Monday through Friday. Job pays okay, $15 an hour plus benefits with lots of upside if you stick, around 2 years of training to get licensed and run your own truck on commission, then $60,000 to $100,000 a year, minimal entry requirements, GED, physically able, clean driver's license helps a lot. Now don't get me wrong, we do find some good ones and we make sure to keep them, but we usually go through 5+ guys before one sticks. Main reason for getting fired? Not getting to work on time or no call, no show. Seriously, 90% of success in this job is simply being present. You're not expected to know much as an apprentice, there's no pressure to sell, you don't have revenue targets and crap to worry about. Just show up and follow directions for 8 to 10 hours a day. Downside, the job is sometimes physically demanding and sometimes gross. Some days will be boring. You're really responsible for motivating yourself. After all, you're getting paid to learn a fairly lucrative trade with business ownership as an endgame if that's what you're into. I really value the guys who stick, but I'm bewildered by the guys who like the job, need the money, etc., but can't get to work on time, 7 a.m. on a regular basis. Story 20. Highly senior front-end developers, like not people with the title senior, but people who have worked at a bunch of companies and have seen some stuff and been through Y2K level crap. Because of the demand, those are incredibly rare. There's a bazillion people entering the industry these days though, so in a decade or so that will hopefully no longer be an issue. More recently and more problematic to me are all kinds of craft people, highly qualified carpenters, plumbers, electricians, painters, etc. I have a long list of contacts, and it seems like every time I call I need one, a bunch quit, change industries, etc. Those are super important, very hard jobs that are frequently severely underpaid. Plumbers are okay-ish, but they have to deal with literal crap. So now there's only like two kinds of contractors, those with a 3 to 6 months lead time and the crooks. Not great. Story 21. Any job which requires a graduate degree and a clearance, aka US citizenship. While it's gotten better recently, it was taking about 2 years to get someone cleared. That means I have to guess what work I will have 2 years from now in a political environment full of continuing resolutions. Not fun. The bigger problem is the graduate degree thing. A majority of the people seeking STEM graduate degrees in the US are not citizens. Thus, the pool is small, so people can be choosy. If you do something sexy like airplanes or satellites, you're good. But if you do something essential but not as sexy, it's really tough to get or hold on to people. So all the college-age engineers reading this thread, do the go-around 50-year master's program. When you graduate, you will make at least $90,000 with stellar benefits if you are a US citizen. Story 22. Can't find competent cybersecurity analysts for $90,000 a year. So many people in IT want to work in cybersecurity, but generally their knowledge of the field is incredibly limited or not applicable to day-to-day security operations at a large company. What's even worse is I see people with master's degrees in cybersecurity that don't have a basic understanding of how computers work. A classic example of knowing is not understanding. It's a very new field that requires a broad understanding of all the facets of IT infrastructure, audit, and compliance regulations, penetration testing, and a mindset to think like a bad person but apply it in a good way. Most experienced and proficient CSAs can pull 100K relatively easily and go to any company they want, so trying to sell the position while also finding competent candidates is very difficult. Story 23. Tellers. I work for a small credit union and I can still tell you every financial institution needs tellers. Why? The job is taxing. You have to do everything 100% right every time, or someone's account gets messed up and you're accountable. You sit on your butt staring at a computer for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Banker's hours have long been a thing of the past. You're treated as disposable refuse from your customers and your employers. Why is this multi-part transaction taking longer than 5 seconds? Why didn't you send 300 people to open new accounts this month? And to top it off, you get paid less than burger flippers at McDonald's, and you get reminded of that fact every time you negotiate a Mickey D's employee's paycheck. I flipped from teller to banker the second they said I had enough experience. Screw that job. Honestly, banker's not a ton better. My hours are even worse, and I get to deal with all the people I deny loans, but my quotas are actually reachable and I make twice as much money if I do well on incentives. Story 24. I'm just an employee, but I work as an operator in an industrial plant. In Canada, we legally need people with a certain level of qualification on site 24/7. The first couple levels are fairly simple, but the second-class ticket takes a lot of effort and experience to get, so there's a shortage. I moved away to work in another province for a couple of years, and when I was ready to move back home, there were 6 companies all looking for a second class and had been for months, and they're all within a half-hour drive of a decent-sized city. I was only halfway towards having a second at that time, and the first place I applied to instantly hired me. Easiest job interview process I've ever went through. Right now, we're short 10% of our operators, and I've had several people turn down offers due to the pay. I took a decent cut when I started, but I was okay with it because I was moving home. Even with the shortage in the area, the companies won't raise their pay. My company has no problem spending money to train people internally though, which is working out sweet for me. Now our overtime costs are massive and guys are getting burnt out. If I ever told my 16-year-old self how much money I turned down in overtime this week, they would hate me, but there's more to life than working. Story 25. Across all of our departments, we are shorthanded. I was hired into a management position with just a resume and a 10-minute phone interview. Our problems are low pay. They gave every hourly person a 15-cent raise and patted themselves on the back for being so generous. Great benefits. Seriously, I've gotten about $150,000 worth of healthcare for only $1,000 out of pocket. That start at day one. People start and get sick after their first paycheck and are rarely seen again. Basically, they know how good our insurance is and take the job long enough to get healthcare and use FMLA to keep their job. Crappy management. I was using a designated storage space to store some required materials and got chewed out for it. I asked why I couldn't use it and was told the building blueprints decided who owns each space, pointed out the blueprints designated for my use. I was then told I have a huge storage space. I asked where and was told my office. It's already filled with materials. I share my office with one of my employees and there was a small space for him to take his break and eat lunch. I was then told to push my desk against the wall, which would result in losing privacy and need since I handle employee data and contact information. Clear off part of my desk and share it with my employee. Was told we are over budget on labor for the year despite being short 5 full-time and 6 part-time employees for over 9 months now. Supply requests take weeks to get approved, takes like 3 minutes to scan through it and hit approval, then get complained at when we run out of supplies. Crappy IT security. I can log into anyone's account by just knowing their ID number, which is easy to get. Just right-click their name in Outlook. Everyone is required to use the same password. I actually had someone in a different department use my account to get some stuff and I got in trouble for allowing it to happen. Terrible software. It takes me 15-20 minutes to do my time card every day. Very clunky and slow. More time is spent navigating it than actually using it. Poor infrastructure. Unless it is totally unusable, it won't get fixed. Not because the maintenance department is lazy, but because they don't want them doing PM. So you may have a steam leak in your office, but as long as steam is flowing, it is fine. It goes on and on with many other issues. Story 26. I work as a collection specialist for an online auction website. They went through so many people before finding me that my supervisor never even got to meet them all. The girl right before me worked there for all of 3 days while my supervisor was on vacation, then quit. Another girl got caught doing something bad by one of the CEOs, I don't remember what exactly, and was fired at around noon her second day. And most memorable of all, on her first day, this girl said she was going on break at about 10:30 a.m. We start at 8 a.m., then never came back and never contacted the company again. Also, we were so desperate for warehouse workers that the higher-ups put in a policy where if you suggested someone should work for a warehouse and they got hired, you both get a bonus of $200 per person and per person you recruited. Even that barely worked. We're so underworked in some of the warehouses that one warehouse manager only had 2 people working under him in the entire warehouse, and they got so behind that the 2 women quit. They had to ask workers from other warehouses to drive from all over to that poor man's warehouse and help him out. In general, auction companies are always looking for workers. I once met a guy who straight up offered me a job working for a high-end art and antiques auction website just because he found out what my work was. Story 27. I run an animal shelter. Finding people who have work ethic is hard. In our area, most jobs are minimum wage. I start them at $10 an hour plus vacation, sick days, pension plan, life insurance, D&D insurance, and short-term disability insurance. The job is hard work. I do train them. I give regular raises if they do a good job. Trying to find people who stay at a job for more than 3 months at a time is very difficult. Their resumes will show 6 or 7 jobs in a 12 to 18 month period of time. They just don't want to work hard. They want it given to them. I am always thrilled to find more mature people wanting to work. I have 3 in their 60s, 3 more in their 40s. They are my hardest workers. Story 28. The company I work for is hemorrhaging employees. We caption phone calls for people who have lost their hearing. It requires 2 weeks of training. Honestly, it should be 3. And it's a skill that doesn't come easy, but nearly everyone is capable of picking it up. We sit in cubicles and don't interact with anyone, just listen and caption. They take basically anyone over 18. It was a good job when I started a few years ago. The times between calls were enough to study or browse the internet. The pay was pretty fair. Now the idle times have fallen dramatically and the pay hasn't changed at all. Meanwhile, similar call center jobs are paying more just to read from a script. People quickly get burnt out and quit. The department in charge of scheduling is a mess. It's mismanaged to hell and the employees there are even more overworked than the captioners. Interactions with them can be shady as hell and they're known to go back on their word about time off and schedule changes. They did an employee morale survey just yesterday and I tore them apart. My sister worked here too for over a year and quit today after being very honest in her own survey. As a night shift employee, my pay is higher, my workload is less, so I'm still doing okay here and I actually like my job. But the day shift is a joke and they'll have to change real quick if they want to continue. As it is, they completely deserve to be struggling like this. Story 29. One big problem, and I see it echoed in this thread, is that employers don't want to train. Companies just don't want to invest in their workers anymore. They only want to hire experienced workers. They don't want to apprentice, and if they do, they don't want to pay for it. They expect colleges to do all of this for them. What I found is that college can't fulfill this role even though colleges sell themselves as if they can. College can only teach you basic, hard, and maybe some soft skills that can maybe get one's foot in the door. If employers want good employees that will stick around, employers need to be willing to train and pay employees well even in training, and not dole out crazy or unrealistic workloads or an otherwise toxic environment. Training will make them good, specific to your industry and company, and the pay and positive work environment will help them stay. Story 30. People to work in nursing homes, PT, OT, kitchen, nursing, big portion is nursing staff. I don't know if it's just a company that's having issues. 2 of our facilities are having staffing issues, but we are constantly understaffed and getting overworked to the point where more people are leaving because they're overworked. Management keeps saying no one is applying, but I don't think they're offering people enough to stay and want to work there. Edit, heesh, people, I was just blowing off steam from being overworked. I'm just a student nurse working as a CNA until I graduate and become an RN. Yes, I know I make crap pay for everything I have to do. Yes, I know the facilities are super expensive to live in. And I know that money doesn't go directly to the staff. Yes, I know that some facilities don't give a crap about their residents. And ST wasn't mentioned because we're fully staffed in that department. There's 4 of them, by the way, so don't give me that sass. And yes, I am still in the process of trying to leave work as an actual student nurse in the hospital. Story 31. Yeah, tell most of these jobs you're a felon and watch them glaze over. Doesn't matter how back on track your life is, sometimes it doesn't matter how long it's been. I'm employed by a small business simply because nobody else wanted me. The upside, my employer has me on his side through and through. There's something to be said for a guy that hears me out, doesn't judge, and offers me a job. Does it pay the best? No. However, it pays enough to help me keep building my life. It's flexible and doesn't demand the friggin' universe out of me while paying jack crap, looking at you, food service. Do you want good candidates? Sometimes, just maybe, good people have skeletons. Story 32. Government cybersecurity jobs. They want to hire hackers, but not if they ever smoke pot. They want to hire highly paid professionals, but pay them crap with crappy benefits. I think the FBI also makes them travel for months of unrelated training and pass physical fitness tests. The USAF just finished training 100 or so airmen for roles in cybersecurity, then retained 0 of them in that role. I don't think they quit. They took other assignments that paid more or had better futures. I was offered a civilian job in that role there, but they offered me $12,000 to $15,000 less than I was currently making as a contractor for the USAF and 2 weeks less vacation. When I tried negotiating, they refused to move even 1 penny and said if I turned it down, they would give the job to the next person. So I said no. Then they came back again and said I better take the job or I would be blackballed from any other job at Kelly or Lackland Air Force Base. They also tried to say the huge cut in vacation was bad because they got a day off every time a former president passes away, and then made a list of living presidents and their age. I kept the list because I knew nobody would believe this story, and this is the abridged version of the insanity I saw when applying there. I said no again. Shortly after that, the contracting company that was employing me at Kelly and Lackland Air Force Base was apparently told to let me go, so I was fired on my day off. A year later, I learned that position was still open. There was nobody in line behind me who wanted the job, and I was the 3rd person in a row to turn it down because of the low salary. Story 33. Engineers in general, but specifically structural engineers for aircraft, are always hiring somewhere. 1/3 of the industry could retire any day now. Lead and management roles are plenty. The job requires keen problem solving and math. Typically, employers want people with high GPAs if right out of college. This is a field where all the BS math and problem solving you did in college actually matters, and you start to realize you didn't even scratch the surface of analysis in college. The biggest issue is that tons of people are believing the crap that they need a master's to improve job prospects, and all of my bosses pretty much agree they would rather have 2 years of experience than a master's. Experience is everything in this field, seeing different structures, different problems, different airframes, and tons of ways to solve problems, and pretty much most of the industry has under 10 years of experience. Story 34. A lot of these trade guys on here talking about how nobody is looking for these jobs should realize the guys coming into the industry now, our parents told all of us, go to college, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a freaking astronaut if you want to. You can do anything you want. Then we got into college and they said, suddenly, make sure you pick something marketable, something you can support yourself with. A lot of us go, oh, crap, well, what's something that's hiring for good money? And we all flood to that. Computer science, engineering, law, PhDs, science degrees. None of us were ever given the chance of, or held guidance to stop and consider, do you really want to spend 4 years picking up a skill for $240,000? You can go to a trade school for a few months, make good money with plenty of industry mobility doing hands-on work. I know a lot of guys at school now who would have definitely gone for that kind of work. Hell, I'm working toward a comp sci degree, and I know it's what I want to do, but I also just got out of a bartending school. 2 weeks it took to pick up a marketable skill, and they help with job placement for life. For life. They've been giving me job leads for a month, and many of them were ready to hire me. There were considerations to be made on my end with school, but I got new leads from these folks every week. Now, no matter where I go, I have a marketable skill that I can use to make upwards of $100 a day. It cost me $500 and 2 weeks. If I'd known that was an option 3 years ago, I may not have gone right to college. Story 35. Nurses who work with elderly patients in their own homes. They get hired for minimum wage and are expected to be able to travel between houses, which could be a 5-minute walk or a 2-hour drive. with only a small remuneration for fuel costs and almost no warning for an appointment change. When they get to someone's house, that person could be happy to see them in a sound state of mind and looking after themselves and just need a hand with some groceries and lifting and changing the bed, etc. Or the care worker could end up at a house with a person who needs total body care, including sanitation, cooking, cleaning, and medical attention. Said person could have also had a fall and not be able to pick themselves up, and trying to pick someone up by yourself is just a massive nope, so they then have to phone an ambulance. Every time an ambulance gets phoned out to a property, the person who needs care may decide to not cooperate or be a danger to themselves and the ambulance crew, as they just don't want to go back to hospital because they value their independence. So a typical carer's day may start at 7 a.m. and end at 8 a.m. after doing 12 visits between various customers' houses, and they may have no idea what to expect at each visit, have zero support from their parent company who just care about profit. As a person who has worked with carers before, some of them are desperate for a job and will work any and all hours despite the fact they know it's highly likely they will be threatened with or receive attempted physical harm during their day-to-day working life, all for minimum wage. I think it's absolutely disgusting that care providers are allowed to shaft people who work for them like this without any recourse or punitive action. The system of tender needs to change in the UK, and these profit-driven companies with a disturbing lack of care for their customers needs to be hauled over the coals in order to reform their business practices or face being excluded from local authority contracts. If any of these stories got to you too, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.